This is Mind Elevation Nation. I'm your co-host, Desmond Wood, aka Dez. And today's topic is the thorny subject of race. So I'll dive right into it with my post, which inspired me to do this video with brother Mohammed. And here it is. Race is a false idea. This notion was coined due to xenophobic proclivities found most notably among Europeans. Herbert Spencer, Nazi-influenced so-called scientist, and other Western propagandists, ethnicities and hence various phenotypes, color of my skin, nose, and so on, due to genetics are an empirical fact of nature, so there is no need at all in 2017 to invoke a false and outdated model. And so then bro Muhammad commented, LOL, Negroes like Gene Toomer and others have been saying this since the Harlem Renaissance, but it don't square with the facts of the jungle. Then he posted a picture of Emmett Till. So Muhammad posted this picture in response to my original post. Emmett Till thought the same, LOL. And I responded, I think you've clearly missed the point of the post, brother. But you are surely intelligent enough to know that my statement does not negate actions which are very egregious that stem from beliefs in such notions. We need clarity, not more confusion. Then you responded, the laws of the jungle demand for biosurvival purposes, demand that all animals are able to classify differentiation based on phenotypes, smell, etc. The Native Americans and West and Central Africans possessed similar, all are the same concepts. And look how the Western European, i.e. whites, exploited that naivete in their thinking. The Native Americans lost possibly 100 million in all their useful land and are on the point of extinction because of such naive and lofty concepts that have no value in the jungle. And Daniel Jones responded, depends what one means about race. If one is talking about heritable traits, then it is not false. I'm not going to beat Usain Bolt in 100 meters, nor is any other white man. Is that a social construct? It's certainly not less than that. But there is more to inheritable traits than social constructs. Muhammad, to clarify, there is one humanity, no doubt. But there are, I'll bet, few genetic markers that result in difference in phenotypes and propensity, even for certain illnesses. The idea of race may be a concept, but a definite, necessary concept given the world we live in. That is, if we wish to thrive biologically as a human group. For the oppressor definitely is defining and oppressing and exploiting and killing and jailing based on such concepts. And I'll stop right there so we can elaborate on that together.
And elaborating on the subject on our Mind Elevation Facebook group, Daniel Jones responded, I think the trouble comes is in the root race theory of the 19th century, which produced racism. They thought along the lines of Caucasoid, Negroid, and Mongoloid in terms of some kind of subspecies essences. The issue is much more plastic than that because groups change over time, not only in terms of environment and geography, but also in terms of group always mingle. And then you responded to his Usain Bolt. In terms of your original post, and you elaborated on ethnicity, I uttered that ethnicity is a false concept that has little biosurvival value. And you said, not true, we disagree here, bro. Which is good that intellectuals disagree with one another. And you even say that I disagree, but great minds can and do see things differently. I replied, ethnicity is another way the trick knowledge is used to divide the masses of the people further, only to be economically and physically exploited by those whites who rule the world, who believe in race while financing the scientists and media and institutions to tell the masses race don't exist. For example, you reference PBS. Well, PBS get a lot of their money from, i.e., the government, and also get its money from rich, wealthy foundations, which to propagate the information that they're trying to spew out there to the public. Not discrediting the information that was given, because we can look at race from certain other, it can be employed that the idea of race and racism has been used to exploit great numbers of people, but just as race and racism has been used to exploit a great number of people, ethnicity has also been used to exploit a great number of people for thousands of years, long even before the concept of race became a functioning model amongst the European. We can also look at the idea of ethnicity. As I stated here earlier in this point, ethnicity is another way the trick knowledge is used to divide the masses of the people. Because here you dividing a people based off of their social cultural group versus defining or classifying the people as a whole in general. Whereas in my model, I believe that we still can hold value to the ideas of race or races, but we can also divide include ethnicity into the subgroupings of said races. For example, it is incorrect to call let's say a person from Mexico a Latino. Well, we know that Latino is the Latin language that is not the indigenous language of those people. That's the language of their conqueror. And we're identifying the people by the language of and culture of their conqueror, then that's really in itself a kind of a false concept, a false notion, because here you have adopting the values and norms and culture of your oppressor, of your conqueror, and you're saying this is mine, when in actuality the Latin language belongs to the Spanish and the Portuguese people, and the people that speak the Latin languages along the southern European coast or the northern Mediterranean region.
Excellent point. So, bro, Muhammad, you say right here, you say ethnicity is another way the trick knowledge is used to divide the masses of the people further, only to be economically and physically exploited by those whites whom rule the world, who believe in race, while financing the scientists and media and institutions to tell the masses race doesn't exist.
Right.
If you really want to get technical, we are essentially dealing with proclivities that vary due to genetics and epigenetics, and hence socio-cultural factors too that bind the two together. When you say, we can be lofty and ideal or practical and real. I want you to wear all red and walk through a GD neighborhood in Chicago, for gang affiliation is also a concept as an experiment, and see then how lofty ideas apply to the world we live in. I said, what you call a lofty ideal is merely a better model which, whether or not someone fully understands it, is the best we have. I have yet to hear of a better model other than more pseudoscience and emotionally charged rhetoric.
Now, what do you mean by better model?
A model which...
what is the, let's say this, what is the better model?
The better model is a model which consists of sound reasoning and abundant evidence.
So what's the better model? What's the better model that you want to utilize now? The model based off of
the modern day anthropological model of one humanity based in the various sciences: anthropology, biology, sociology, and so on. There's one humanity. Actually, there's only one code for life that we know of: DNA.
Okay, and
interacting with RNA, and it gets more complicated than that. But in a nutshell, one code for life, DNA, one humanity, but variation due to evolution, due to genetic drift. These are lofty concepts we can go into in another video, but people should become familiar with these terms: genetic drift, evolution, which we all should have a general understanding of. Genetic drift basically means that people change as they migrate, hence drift. Genetic drift, genes moving around, embodied in people, adapting to the environment, so that some people become darker, some people become lighter.
But there's problems with that theory.
There's problems with that too.
Not the problem with genetic drift,
okay,
but the actual theory that creatures, and many scientists have pointed this out. I forgot who authored that theory. I think it was in the late 1800s, also at a time when there was mass racism in the sciences. Then he said if you live darker near the darker people develop as you get towards the
yes,
equator,
the vitamin D.
and a lot of you get as you live in the northern regions. But there's major problems with that idea. And then others came along piggybacking off of that idea and trying to explain it. And this is where the vitamin D theory came out of that, as trying to explain it. But there's many problems with that.
And even if a model makes sense, it doesn't mean it's true, right?
Exactly.
There are a lot of counterintuitive
and
truths.
there's hardly any absolutes in science also.
Exactly.
And
so can we say we agree that there's some at least partial truth to that?
No.
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 Oh yes, there is.
No. No. For example, the Eskimos, the Ainu people, and other people.
They've lost a lot of color since they migrated from their ancestors migrated from Africa.
No, most of
them actually proves that.
Most of those people are about my complexion still now.
A little lighter, just like Tibetans are a little lighter than you on average.
Yeah, but they're light brown people, or to a caramel complexion brown people. Pretty much the same that they were when
How
they
does
came.
that negate the vitamin
pretty
D
much the
synthesis theory for diversification?
Meaning that what actually happens in terms of the differences in colors of the races is based off of mutation in the early phases of embryogenesis. For example, when you begin to conceptualize a child, when you begin to impregnate a woman and y'all got a child being birthed in her womb, in the early stages of embryogenesis, as soon as you come from out of the neural tube to the neural crest, there are genes there and factors there that determine what race and what your skin pigmentation will be. And
that has been influenced through genetic drift.
That may not.
This is the nature.
The factors there don't always determine that. It might not be due to. I'm not going to say that genetic drift doesn't have value in itself, but in terms of genetic drift as the cause of the differentiation of the races,
and that's what
I'm
so-called races.
Yeah, and I'm saying that genetic drift itself doesn't have factors into play, but I'm saying in terms of the differentiation of the races, that has a lot to do with mutations that take place in in certain genes due to the lack of or the prevalence of certain gene factors. And so, or the absence of certain proteins and certain other chemicals, and this takes place, like I said, in the very, very, very beginning stages of the development of a life form.
Okay. Mutations that take place among one humanity or races.
Well, the one humanity. There's one humanity. We're all human.
Not as an altruistic idea.
No, no. I said the concept of race is a false notion. We're all, even though we're different races.
You don't agree with that, do you?
No, I don't agree that race is a false notion. It's a very useful concept given the environment that we live in. I'm saying the practicality of the idea of race is a practical idea given the environment that we live in. You know what I'm saying? Given that the fact that historically that idea would have been very, very beneficial to Native Americans when they first approached the white man, for the most part, many of them embraced them with open arms. But not understanding that these people had a whole different, another mentality embodied in them as a people. They had different cultural norms. Europeans believed in, I'm going to take your land and I'm going to get you out of here.
That model would have been useful for them because they could have said, hey, this guy is not the same as you.
Exactly.
He's not part of the same family.
Exactly. So therefore we have to be careful, as any animal in nature is careful when interacting with the new organism.
So you're calling for practical utility.
Practical utility. For example, in this practical
and
utility,
validity, you would say.
The practicality of this is something that animals develop early on in evolution. We develop our eyes so that we can identify, and our nose and olfactory system and other systems are developed in organisms, especially vertebrates, in order to cognize dangers, in order to cognize things that are not a threat. And so therefore, if a minnow can't see a shark, then that minnow has a serious problem. If the minnow can't see a shark.
That's true.
If the minnow just says, oh, we're all fish and we're all okay, They're all fishes, right? A shark is a type of fish, right?
Correct.
But that shark will eat that minnow.
Most of that.
So therefore, the eyes, these evolutionary developed organs,
But those are unconscious impulses for its survival.
for biosurvival
Right.
purposes. And that's what I'm
Biosurvival.
saying. These unconscious impulses to classify, this is a white man, this is a yellow
Not
man, or a
necessarily
China
theory,
man.
though. And see, the human being with our intelligence, we can construct with our language, and we construct models with our
Well,
frontal lobe, the
Well,
neocortex.
the
things get a little bit more
the theory
tricky.
get added on.
Right. Strapped
The
on.
theory of race that
Yeah.
developed into racism is we all have a problem with that. As I posted in another post that
Now,
race.
hold on, to be clear, we don't disagree that there's behavior which we call racism. Notice my post didn't say that. I said race.
Yeah,
Now,
race.
racism, no one can deny that.
No one can
you
deny
supplement that, by the way, for
But you still
Terrorism.
implemented
Racism is a form of terrorism, though, right?
but you still incorporated that.
right. But hold on, can we agree that racism is a form of terrorism?
Yes, we can agree.
Okay, and this terrorism is based upon antipathy. That means dislike or hatred,
Mm-hmm.
right? And xenophobic impulses, which also means a fear or dislike of that which is strange or different. I use the word xenophobia a lot.
Which is what you used in the beginning, folks. You said
Right.
race
Going
is a
to-
false idea. This notion was coined due to xenophobic proclivities found most notably among Europeans. And so,
We don't disagree there, right?
no,
Most
that
notably
this
among
notion was
Europeans.
coined due to xenophobic proclivities found most notably among Europeans.
Well, there is evidence, there's anecdotes in Africa of prejudice, right? But not necessarily a whole system of antipathy or xenophobia, call it racism, if you will, based upon that.
Right, and this
Just
is
like
what
there's evidence that
and this is what you
enslaved other people, but it wasn't to the extent of the transatlantic slave trade.
right. It was different
Not to
forms
that
of slavery,
extent. It
more
was
biblical
extreme.
and Quranic style,
Exactly.
and ancient archaic forms of slavery. Even ants practiced slavery in their kingdom as well.
This is your co-host Desmond Wood signing off. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more provocative and profound episodes coming soon.